In 40 years on the bench, I've seen defendants faint from fear, panic from anxiety, and breakdown from guilt. But nothing prepared me for the morning when a decorated war hero collapsed in my courtroom, not from weakness, but from the weight of carrying invisible wounds that our nation refuses to see. That Tuesday morning taught me that sometimes justice means recognizing when the defendant standing before you is still fighting a war that never really ended. It was a standard session for traffic violations when my clerk called the state versus Daniel Rodriguez, reckless driving, excessive speed, and failure to obey traffic signals. A man entered the courtroom moving with rigid military precision. Daniel Rodriguez, 36 years old, Marine Corps veteran, wearing his dress uniform with rows of ribbons across his chest. Combat Action Ribbon, Purple Heart, Navy Cross, the decorations of someone who had seen and survived hell. He walked to the defendant's table alone, no lawyer, no family, standing at attention like he was reporting to a commanding officer rather than appearing before a judge. His eyes were fixed forward, jaw clenched, hands locked at his sides in perfect military bearing. "Mr. Rodriguez," I said, "are you represented by counsel?" "No, sir," he replied, his voice sharp and formal. "Military protocol even in civilian court. I represent myself, sir." I reviewed the case file. 3 weeks ago, police pursued Rodriguez through downtown Providence at speeds exceeding 90 miles per hour. He ran 4 red lights, drove on the wrong side of the road, and only stopped when he crashed his vehicle into a concrete barrier. Officers found him unresponsive in the driver's seat, eyes open but not seeing, body rigid and shaking. The prosecutor, Assistant DA Jennifer Walsh, stood up. "Your Honor, Mr. Rodriguez endangered dozens of lives with reckless driving that demonstrated complete disregard for public safety. Witnesses reported his vehicle weaving through traffic at excessive speeds, forcing other drivers off the road. This wasn't a momentary lapse of judgment. This was sustained, dangerous driving that could have killed innocent people." "Mr. Rodriguez," I asked, "how do you plead to these charges?" "Guilty, sir," he responded immediately. "No excuse for my actions, sir. I endangered civilians. I violated traffic laws. I accept full responsibility and await sentencing." His responses were too fast, too mechanical, like he was following a script written by someone who wasn't really present. "Mr. Rodriguez, can you explain what happened that morning?" "No excuse, sir. I was driving recklessly. The facts are clear. I request immediate sentencing to resolve this matter efficiently." Walsh stood again. "Your Honor, given the severity of Mr. Rodriguez's actions and the danger he posed, the state recommends 1 year in county jail, 3 years probation, permanent license revocation, and mandatory anger management counseling. 1 year in jail for a decorated Marine who looked like he was barely holding himself together. Mr. Rodriguez," I continued, "were you alone in the vehicle?" He hesitated for the first time. "Yes, sir. Alone." "Were you fleeing from something?" Another pause, longer this time. His jaw clenched tighter. "No, sir." "Were you trying to hurt yourself?" His eyes flickered just for a moment, and I saw something behind the military facade. Pain, fear, memories that wouldn't stay buried. "Mr. Rodriguez, I'm going to ask you a direct question, and I need you to answer honestly. Were you having a combat flashback when this incident occurred?" His entire body went rigid, hands trembling despite his attempt to maintain composure. "Sir, that's not—" "Mr. Rodriguez, I can see your service ribbons. Combat Action Ribbon means you engaged enemy forces. Purple Heart means you were wounded. Navy Cross means you showed extraordinary heroism under fire. Those decorations tell me you've experienced combat most people can't imagine. So I'm asking again, were you having a flashback?" Daniel's breathing became rapid, shallow. Sweat appeared on his forehead despite the cool courtroom. His eyes were fixed on something I couldn't see, something only he could perceive. "Sir, I was driving, and suddenly I wasn't in Providence anymore. I was back in Fallujah. Second Battle of Fallujah, November 2004. House-to-house fighting, my squad clearing buildings room by room. His voice changed, becoming distant, mechanical, like he was reporting events from far away. We entered a building, standard procedure. I was point man, opened a door, and there was an insurgent with an RPG aimed at my face, 3 feet away. I could see his eyes. I fired first. He went down, but then there were more, coming from everywhere. Shooting, explosions, screaming. We fought for 6 hours in that building, lost 2 men, Thompson and Garcia, good Marines. They died because I didn't clear the second floor properly. My mistake, my responsibility. Mr. Rodriguez, I said gently, what does this have to do with the traffic incident? I was driving to work, sir. Morning traffic, familiar route. Then a car backfired. Loud bang like an RPG. And suddenly, I wasn't in Providence. I was back in that building. I could smell burning, hear screaming, see Thompson bleeding out on the floor. I wasn't driving a car. I was trying to escape. Had to get out, had to move, had to survive. His breathing was getting worse, faster, more labored. The streets became corridors. Other cars became threats. Traffic lights became danger zones. I was trying to reach safety, but there was no safety. Just more threats, more danger, more enemies everywhere. Walsh stood up. Your Honor, while we sympathize with Mr. Rodriguez's service and any mental health challenges, he still endangered innocent civilians. Counselor, sit down. I'm not finished. I turned back to Daniel, who was now visibly shaking, his military bearing crumbling under the weight of memories he'd been carrying for 20 years. Mr. Rodriguez, when did you return from Iraq? 20 years ago, sir, November 2004. They sent me home after Fallujah, said I'd served with distinction, gave me medals, told me I was a hero. Did you receive treatment for PTSD? VA offered treatment, sir. I went to 3 sessions, sat in a room with a counselor who never served, never saw combat, trying to understand what it's like to shoot someone at point-blank range, trying to explain nightmares to someone who sleeps through the night. I stopped going. Why? Because talking doesn't stop the flashbacks, sir, doesn't bring back Thompson and Garcia, doesn't change the fact that I see their faces every single day, that I hear that RPG every time a car backfires or a door slams or someone drops something metal. His voice was breaking now, the military discipline finally shattering. I've been fighting this war for 20 years, sir. 20 years of carrying Fallujah with me everywhere I go. 20 years of pretending I'm fine when I'm not fine. 20 years of trying to be normal when I don't even remember what normal feels like. That's when it happened. Daniel's breathing became ragged, gasping. His eyes went wide, unfocused, seeing something that wasn't there. His hands started trembling uncontrollably. He grabbed the defendant's table for support, knuckles white, body swaying. Mr. Rodriguez, are you okay? But he wasn't hearing me anymore. He was somewhere else, somewhere terrible. Contact! Contact right! He shouted suddenly, voice filled with panic. RPG! Take cover! Thompson's hit! Garcia! Check Thompson! I need covering fire! The courtroom froze. Everyone watched as this decorated Marine relived a battle from 20 years ago in a Rhode Island courtroom. They're everywhere, 2nd floor, 3rd floor. Rodriguez to all units, we're pinned down. Request immediate support. We're taking casualties. His breathing was hyperventilating now, face pale, body shaking violently. He was having a full-blown PTSD episode right in front of everyone. Thompson's down. Garcia's down. Where's my squad? Where's my backup? I can't leave them. I won't leave them. Then his legs gave out. Daniel Rodriguez, Navy Cross recipient, decorated combat veteran, collapsed to the courtroom floor, curled into a fetal position, sobbing and shouting orders to Marines who weren't there, fighting battles that ended 2 decades ago but never really stopped. I immediately banged my gavel. This hearing is suspended. Someone call an ambulance, now. I came down from the bench, ignoring protocol, Ignoring the shocked looks from court staff and attorneys, I knelt beside Daniel, who was still trapped in Fallujah, still fighting enemies no one else could see. "Marine," I said, using the title deliberately. "Marine, can you hear me? You're in Providence, Rhode Island. You're safe. The battle is over. Your squad made it out. You're home." But he was too far gone, trapped in memories that felt more real than the present. The paramedics arrived within minutes. They'd seen this before, veterans who looked fine until they weren't, who carried wars inside them that erupted without warning. "PTSD episode," the lead paramedic said, checking Daniel's vitals. "Severe anxiety attack, possibly flashback-induced. We need to transport him for evaluation." "Take him to the VA hospital," I ordered, "and make sure someone stays with him. He's not to be left alone." As they loaded Daniel onto a stretcher, still muttering about RPGs and fallen comrades, I turned to Walsh. "Counselor, we need to talk about this case." Walsh looked shaken, all her earlier prosecutorial confidence gone. "Your Honor, I had no idea he was dealing with PTSD that severe." "Neither did I, Counselor. Neither did anyone. That's the problem." I reconvened court the next morning with Daniel absent, still hospitalized. I'd spent the evening reviewing his complete record, including military service files that painted a picture of a man who gave everything for his country and received almost nothing in return. Daniel Rodriguez enlisted in the Marines at 18, deployed to Iraq 3 times between 2003 and 2005, saw some of the heaviest combat of the war. The Navy Cross citation described how he single-handedly held off insurgent attackers while evacuating wounded Marines under fire, killing 6 enemy combatants and preventing the capture of his squad. He came home decorated and destroyed. The VA diagnosed him with severe PTSD, depression, and anxiety disorder. They offered medication and counseling. He tried both. Neither stopped the nightmares, the flashbacks, or the guilt of surviving when good men died. He found work as a mechanic, a job that didn't require much interaction with people, where he could focus on engines instead of memories. He lived alone, had no close relationships, existed day-to-day managing symptoms that never really improved. Until that morning when a car backfired and 20 years of suppressed trauma erupted in 90-mile-per-hour driving through downtown Providence. Walsh approached the bench. "Your Honor, in light of yesterday's events, the state would like to reconsider our position. We move to amend charges from reckless driving to reckless driving due to medical emergency, with recommendation for mandatory treatment rather than incarceration. Counselor, I appreciate the state's reconsideration, but I'm going further than that." I issued my ruling. In the matter of the state versus Daniel Rodriguez, I'm dismissing all criminal charges. Mr. Rodriguez was not driving recklessly due to malice or negligence. He was experiencing a severe PTSD episode triggered by combat trauma he sustained while serving this nation. Punishing him for symptoms of wounds he received in combat would be unconscionable. Walsh nodded slowly. "The state doesn't object, Your Honor. Furthermore, I'm ordering the following. The court will cover all costs for Mr. Rodriguez's treatment at a specialized PTSD facility. Not the overburdened VA system, but a private facility that specializes in combat trauma. He will receive intensive treatment for a minimum of 90 days. Additionally, I'm establishing a veterans' mental health intervention program for this court. Any veteran charged with crimes potentially related to PTSD will receive immediate evaluation and treatment options before prosecution proceeds. We will not jail people for suffering from wounds we ask them to endure." I paused, thinking about Daniel Rodriguez collapsed on the courtroom floor, fighting a battle from 20 years ago, carrying guilt and trauma that our nation thanked him for and then ignored. Finally, I'm ordering outreach to local VA facilities, veteran organizations, and mental health providers to identify other veterans like Mr. Rodriguez who are suffering in silence. We will offer them treatment before they end up in this courtroom facing criminal charges for symptoms they can't control. 3 months later, Daniel Rodriguez returned to my courtroom, not as a defendant, but as a visitor. He looked different, rested, calmer, present in a way he hadn't been during his hearing. "Judge Caprio," he said, shaking my hand, "I came to thank you for stopping the hearing when you did, for recognizing what was happening when I couldn't recognize it myself." "How are you doing, Mr. Rodriguez?" "Better, sir. The treatment facility you sent me to specializes in combat PTSD, real treatment from people who understand what combat does to you. Group therapy with other veterans who've been through it. They taught me that flashbacks aren't weakness, they're injuries, and injuries can be treated." "Are the flashbacks gone?" "No, sir, they're not gone, but I have tools now. When I feel one coming, I know how to ground myself, remind myself where I am, what year it is, that I'm safe. They gave me my life back, Your Honor. The life I lost in Fallujah 20 years ago." Daniel pulled an envelope from his pocket. "I also wanted you to have this." It was a letter, handwritten, several pages long. I wrote down everything I remember from that day in Fallujah, the battle, my squad, Thompson and Garcia, what they meant to me, how their deaths affected me. My therapist said writing it down helps process the trauma. I wanted you to read it, to understand what war does to people like me, so maybe you can help other veterans before they end up where I was. I read the letter that night. Detailed descriptions of combat that made my hands shake, accounts of heroism and horror happening simultaneously, young men fighting and dying in buildings thousands of miles from home, Daniel watching friends bleed out while calling for medics who couldn't reach them in time. But the last paragraph stayed with me most. For 20 years, I believed I failed Thompson and Garcia, that their deaths were my fault. My therapist helped me understand that I didn't fail them. I fought for them, I survived for them, and now I'm living for them, carrying their memory not as guilt but as honor. They would want me to live well, not to suffer. Your Honor, when you stopped that hearing and got me help instead of throwing me in jail, you gave me permission to finally forgive myself. Thank you for seeing the Marine behind the defendant, for recognizing that some battles don't end when the war is over. The Veterans Mental Health Program expanded beyond my courtroom. The state judiciary adopted it system-wide. Other states studied our model and implemented similar programs. Within 2 years, thousands of veterans received treatment instead of incarceration for crimes linked to PTSD. Daniel Rodriguez became an advocate, speaking at veteran events, sharing his story, encouraging other combat veterans to seek help before crisis points. He started a peer support group for Iraq and Afghanistan veterans dealing with PTSD. 15 veterans in the first session, over 100 within a year. I attended one of his group sessions, invited to speak about the court's veteran program. I watched Daniel leading discussion with men and women who had seen combat, who carried invisible wounds, who were learning that asking for help wasn't weakness, but courage. After the session, a young veteran approached me, Marine Corps corporal recently returned from Afghanistan. "Judge Caprio, Daniel told us how you stopped his hearing when he collapsed, how you got him treatment instead of jail time. I've been having flashbacks too, didn't know where to turn, thought I had to handle it alone. But hearing Daniel's story made me realize I need help. Thank you for creating a program that shows veterans we matter." That's when I understood the full impact of that Tuesday morning when Daniel Rodriguez collapsed in my courtroom. By stopping the hearing, by recognizing that he wasn't a criminal, but a casualty of war still fighting battles in his mind, by choosing treatment over punishment, we didn't just help one veteran, we created a model that helped thousands. My father used to tell me, "Frank, justice isn't about punishment. It's about understanding why people do what they do and addressing the real problems." Daniel Rodriguez taught me that sometimes defendants collapse in courtrooms not from guilt, but from carrying wounds society refuses to acknowledge. When our nation sends young people to war, we promise to take care of them when they return. That promise shouldn't end at medical care for physical wounds. It must include healing invisible wounds that hurt just as much and last just as long. I'm Frank Caprio. Remember, when someone collapses under the weight of trauma we asked them to endure, justice means catching them before they fall further. And sometimes stopping a hearing is the most important decision a judge can make.